Hello everyone, I'm Michael Serapio. The federal budget is before the House of Commons this evening, but even before MPs voted on the bill, Canadians seem to have already passed their own judgment on the Liberal plan. The latest voting intentions put out by the Leger Group today have Conservatives building their lead over Liberals by another 2 points, now standing at 44%, Liberals at 23%, the NDP at 17%, and the Bloc at 8%. Now, in an interview with the National Post, Leger Vice President Andrew says he did not think the Liberals would slip more, and, quote, the glass half empty perspective would be that the budget missed the mark, while the glass half full would be that the budget is going to take a while to penetrate into the opinion and work its way in terms of improving the fortunes of the government. Well, with that, we're happy to have on the program this evening Sean Fraser, the Housing Minister. Minister, thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for having me.
So, jumping off that poll, Minister, so much of your government's focus since Parliament's return in September has been on housing, and yet you see these poll numbers, your party is still trailing badly. Why do you think your government's push to convince Canadians that you care about affordability concerns like housing is failing?
Well, let's just be clear about what we're trying to achieve. It's not to move the horse race numbers over the next number of days or weeks. It's to solve the national housing crisis. The challenge that we're facing today has emerged over years and in some ways decades, and it's going to take some time to solve. I think before Canadians show in significant numbers that they are going to have faith that the housing crisis will in fact be solved, they're going to need to see progress. Now, we've got some encouraging numbers that we've seen coming in different parts of the country with an uptick in housing measures, housing starts, in jurisdictions that have partnered with us to put measures in place to accelerate the pace of home building. We've also got measures that are going to create opportunities for people to save up to get into the market and to build more affordable housing for low-income families. But some of these measures are going to take a little bit of time to manifest, so we can demonstrate that progress. It's going to provide relief that has disproportionately impacted a younger generation of Canadians who feel priced out of the market.
Mm-hmm. I want to pick up on that because the Conservatives do say that housing will remain unaffordable under your government. And to back up that argument, they're pointing to a CMHC report that says housing starts are expected to be less in 2024 than 2021. I know you're making the argument that things are making their way through the system, but are they wrong there, that we're going to have less in this year than we did 3 years ago?
So 3 years ago was the highest rate of home building that we had in many decades. It was at the high water mark, and we've seen a slight decrease over the last couple of years as a result of the higher interest rate. Now, we have seen this year already a 16% increase compared to last year, so this year we're starting to trend in the right direction. And the report that you're referring to doesn't fully contemplate the measures that were included in the recent housing plan. So when you factor in the tax measures that will make it cheaper to build homes, low-cost financing that will get more projects off the shelf and shovels in the ground, and additional measures that are going to make it easier to build homes as a result of the municipal changes that we've incentivized through the Housing Accelerator Fund, I have faith that we're going to be able to reverse that trend. But it may take a little bit of time. But we're not trying to simply put measures in place that will look good in the newspapers tomorrow. We're trying to solve a generational challenge. It may take a little bit of time, but I have faith that the plan that we've put in place is going to get us there.
Okay, you say generational challenge. You've said it more than once, but as you know, we saw this social media video put out by the Conservative leader at the end of last year. It addressed the housing crisis, and one of the opening lines that Pierre Poilievre uses is that there's now an entire generation of young people who believe they will never be able to afford a home. And when you look again at this Leger poll, 46% of 18 to 34-year-olds would vote Conservative right now, and only 17% would vote for your party. I know your party's latest budget talks about making things more fair across generations, but have you lost this current generation because you didn't take action sooner?
Look, in my own view, I certainly think we could have moved faster, moved bigger, moved sooner, but that doesn't give an excuse not to do everything that we can right now. For a short while longer, I'm one of the few cabinet ministers who remains in his 30s, and everybody I talk to, my age and younger, feels that there is real challenges. There's real anxiety out there, and we need to do more to address it. That's why you would have seen such an increase in the pace of housing policies that we've been implementing over the past number of months. We We believe that every generation deserves a fair shot to get into the housing market if that's what they wish. That's why we've created new opportunities for tax-free savings accounts for young people who are seeking to buy their first home. It's why we're aggressively pursuing measures that are going to make it easier and faster to build homes. We need to show progress. We owe it to a generation of young Canadians who feel priced out of the market to demonstrate that they have a place in the housing market if that's what they wish. I understand the very real anxiety that people are facing with the rising cost of living, including the rising cost of housing, and we're doing everything we can to address it. We can't do it alone, but when I actually compare the plans the different parties are putting on the table, it's no contest. The Conservatives' plan is to pull the government out of the housing space. They want to raise taxes by putting the GST back on the construction of new middle-class homes. They want to cut funding to cities who are trying to implement the kinds of reforms that are actually going to make it easier to build homes, and they have no measures to incentivize the industry to produce more homes or to help low-income families have a roof over their head if they can't afford a place in the market. So we're going to do everything that we can to do right by a generation of young people who've been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic and its impact on the housing market in Canada. It's going to take a little bit of time to see the progress that I want to see, but we are well underway with a plan that's going to have a meaningful and positive impact.
Okay, I hear what you're saying, but you know, Conservatives, and you know this, they focused on you. In fact, they have called you, and forgive me for this is their word, not mine, they call you incompetent. They blame in part your tenure as immigration minister for some of the challenges we're now facing on housing. When you make these arguments, they are questioning whether or not Canadians can trust you to actually deliver. How do you answer that?
I'm not asking people to trust any promise from a politician. I'm asking them to review the plan, compare it to the different plans that are on the table, and you'll see that ours is far more ambitious and far more aggressive. With respect to the allegations around immigration that people lobby at me, look, people want to say what's ever in their political interest. I remain very proud of some of the things that we were able to achieve, to do right by Afghans who serve with the Canadian Armed Forces, to welcome Ukrainians who were fleeing an invasion by Russia. There were some challenges that we faced as multiple cohorts came to Canada at once as the borders reopened after a few years, and Canada became the #1 place in the world that people wanted to come and live and work. There's some lessons we've learned about how to better cooperate with provincial governments to help prevent abuses in the student program, for example, that we're now implementing to help address some of those challenges. But when people are actually comparing plans, I think they'll see that they shouldn't just trust what any politician is saying. They should look at the plans. I think democracy demands a healthy dose of skepticism over the promises made by political parties, but it also demands that people give an honest comparison of what's being proposed. When I look at the ideas we're putting on the table, the plans that we're implementing, the policies that are actually going forward and having an impact already, you're going to see a very clear division as to who's got the real ambition to solve the housing crisis.
You know, Minister, I appreciate you answering those questions, but before you go, I also want to ask you about what happened in the House of Commons yesterday. Mr. Poilievre was expelled, but based on the exchanges there, it's obvious that the official opposition have issues with the Speaker essentially not trusting his judgment. Can Mr. Fergus really continue in that role if he cannot command the confidence of the House?
So first on your question, and then maybe on the events of yesterday, if any member of any party disregards the ruling of the Speaker and shows disrespect to the orders the Speaker gives, that's not just a disrespect to the individual, it's a disrespect to the institution. My view is that the decision taken by the Speaker he was put in a very challenging position, but I don't think it was right for any member, Mr. Poilievre, Ms. Harder, or anyone else, to openly defy the Speaker or to walk out of the House of Commons. I don't think it's appropriate behavior, and I think Canadians should demand a higher degree of professionalism and frankly, should demand politicians behave like adults. For my part, I've been reflecting on how we talk to one another. I fear that we've created a situation around our politics where we're inclined just to seek out people with whom we already agree, and it breeds a culture where we more often seek to confirm our biases rather than challenge our perspectives. It's not healthy. We need to work together, particularly where we disagree with one another, for the betterment of our communities, for the betterment of Canadians. I think that's something that we all owe our constituents, because I can tell you, back home, nobody elected me to call the other guy names. They elected me to go to work for them. I think if we would all remember that, we'd all be better served with the time that we have here and the privilege we have to serve our communities in the House of Commons.
Mr. Sean Fraser, thank you for the time this evening.
Pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.